You need to stop wasting time with those shelter dogs and focus on finding a husband, my father declared, stabbing his fork into the prime rib like he was trying to kill it twice. The crystal chandelier above our dining table cast harsh shadows across his face, making him look more severe than usual, if that was even possible. I'm Bridget, and at 29, I'm what my father considers his greatest disappointment. Not that he'd ever say those exact words. We're too refined for that kind of honesty in the James household. The shelter work is important to me, Dad, I said, pushing my asparagus around the plate. We saved 16 dogs last month alone. Saved them for what? To drain resources better spent elsewhere? He wiped his mouth with the crisp linen napkin. Your sister had already married into the Ford family by your age. Now she's the picture of success. Ah, yes, my perfect sister Willow. Right on cue. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat beside her husband, avoiding my eyes. The diamond tennis bracelet on her wrist caught the light as she reached for her water glass. The Fords are having their annual charity gala next month, my father continued. I've arranged for you to attend. Robert's cousin just divorced and… I'm working that weekend, I cut in, earning a sharp look. We have a major adoption event. Blair can handle it, he dismissed, naming my best friend who worked with me. This is about your future, Bridget. Your reputation. The word reputation hit like a slap. I thought about the paperwork hidden in my bag. Permit applications under a foundation name that didn't exist yet. Property acquisition documents that would give my father a stroke if he knew about them. Speaking of reputations, I said carefully, how's the new championship line coming along? His face brightened instantly. Show dogs, his true children. Magnificent. The new breeding pair alone is worth more than most people's homes. Pure bloodlines, impeccable temperament. I tuned out his familiar speech, thinking instead about the letter I'd received just 3 months ago after my grandmother Catherine's passing. The inheritance had shocked everyone, especially since the bulk of it went to me, not Willow. Use it for what lights you up, the letter had read in my grandmother's elegant script. I've watched them dim your spark for too long. $3.2 million, enough to build something real, something that mattered, something that would make my father's precious purebred empire look like the shallow venture it was. Bridget? Are you even listening? My father's sharp tone snapped me back. Sorry. Just thinking about work tomorrow, I said, which wasn't entirely a lie. I had a meeting with contractors at 7 a.m., contractors who thought they were building for the Second Chance Foundation. That's exactly your problem, he sighed. Always distracted by strays when you should be focused on building connections. Real connections. Willow cleared her throat. The shelter work is… sweet, Bridget. But maybe Dad has a point. You're not getting any younger. Thanks for dinner, I said abruptly, standing up. I need to go check on a sick puppy at the shelter. It wasn't true, but the lie came easily these days. Just like the fake foundation letterhead I'd created, or the shell company I'd established to buy the land 20 minutes outside the city. This is exactly why you'll end up alone, my father called after me as I headed for the door. Running off to play with mongrels instead of building a real life. I paused at the doorway, my hand tight on the frame. You know what, Dad? Maybe I will end up alone, but at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. The drive home was a blur of anger and determination. In my apartment, I pulled out the latest architectural plans from my family's storage unit, the last place they'd ever look. The rescue center would be state-of-the-art, with specialized ventilation systems, emergency response capabilities, and enough space for hundreds of animals. My phone buzzed, a text from Blair. How bad was it? The usual, I typed back. But it doesn't matter. Got the final permits today. We break ground next week. He's going to lose his mind when he finds out, she replied. I smiled, thinking about the millions my father had sunk into his breeding operation, all the times he'd sneered at my hobby of saving strays. "That's the point," I wrote back. "But he's not going to find out until it's too late to stop it." I pulled out my grandmother's letter, worn from repeated reading. "Use it for what lights you up." Oh, Grandma. I was about to light up the whole damn sky. "Another job interview today?" Blair asked, making air quotes as she helped me load supplies into my trunk. The morning sun cast long shadows across the shelter's parking lot, and the smell of wet dog food clung to our scrubs. "Willow thinks I'm meeting some corporate headhunter in the city," I said, checking my phone's GPS. The construction site was a 40-minute drive, and the foreman had questions about the specialized ventilation system. She offered to help me pick out a proper interview outfit. "Your sister would have a stroke if she knew you were building a multi-million-dollar rescue facility instead of hunting for a husband." Blair slammed the trunk shut. "Speaking of which, how's the construction coming along?" "Ahead of schedule, actually. The foundation work is—" I stopped mid-sentence, staring at my phone. An email had just popped up from an anonymous address. "Interesting investment for someone who claims to be living paycheck to paycheck." "What's wrong?" Blair leaned over my shoulder. "Nothing," I said quickly, deleting the message. "Probably spam." But it wasn't spam, and we both knew it. Someone was watching. The construction site was buzzing with activity when I arrived. Jordan, the rescue director I'd hired as the public face of the operation, was already there, reviewing blueprints with the crew. "The isolation ward needs to be completely separate from the main ventilation system," she was explaining. "In case of disease outbreak, or smoke," I added, joining them. "If there's ever a fire in the area, we need to be able to protect the animals." The foreman nodded, making notes. "Like a hospital setup? Smart thinking." My phone buzzed. Willow calling. I stepped away to answer it. "Where are you?" she demanded. "I thought we were meeting for lunch to discuss your career options." "Sorry, the interview ran long. They want me back this afternoon for a second round." "Bridget." Her voice softened with what I recognized as pity. "Dad's just trying to help. He has connections at all the top firms. If you'd just let him—" "I have to go," I cut her off. The recruiter's calling on the other line. I ended the call and turned back to find Jordan giving me a knowing look. "Family's complicated," she said simply. "You have no idea." That evening, I drove to Willow's house for our rescheduled sister talk. Her mansion in the prestigious North Side made my apartment look like a doghouse, which, given the amount of rescue work I did there, wasn't entirely inaccurate. "You can't keep living like this," Willow said, handing me a glass of wine. "Dad's right, Bridget. You're wasting your prime. Men don't go for dog hair and debt." I thought about the state-of-the-art facility taking shape across town. "I'm doing fine. Fine isn't good enough in this family. You know that." She sighed, absently touching her perfect blowout. "The Andersons' son just moved back from New York. He's a surgeon, and I'm not interested in being set up." "Then what are you interested in?" "Because this rescue thing, it's not a real career, Bridget. It's not a life." I stood up, my wine untouched. "It's my life." The drive home took me past the construction site. I pulled over, needing to check something before heading home. The security lights cast long shadows across the partially completed buildings, and there, hanging on the front gate, was a single blue ribbon, identical to the ones my father's show dogs won at every competition. My hands shook as I took it down. The message was clear. Someone knew. Someone connected to my father's world had figured it out. Back home, I called Blair. "Your cousin Owen still works for my dad, right?" I asked without preamble. "Yeah, why?" "Has he mentioned anything about a new rescue facility being built?" "Not to me, but—" Blair hesitated. He's been asking weird questions lately. About you. About where you go during the day. My stomach dropped. Owen had access to all my father's files, including the storage unit records where I kept the building plans. Another email popped up. Charity can't hide you forever. I thought about my father's rage when he discovered what I'd done with my inheritance, about how his precious reputation would suffer when people learned his daughter had built a mongrel sanctuary right under his nose. Blair, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I need you to find out exactly what Owen knows, because if my father finds out about this before we're ready, he'll shut you down, she finished. No, I said, staring at the blue ribbon. He'll try, but I've come too far to stop now. If he wants a war, he's going to get one. The threatening emails kept coming, each one more pointed than the last, each one making it clearer that someone was watching my every move. The latest sat open on my phone. Wonder what Daddy would say about his little girl's secret project? We need to do something about Owen, Blair said, pacing my living room. He's definitely the one feeding information to your dad. We don't know that for sure, I replied, but my gut said otherwise. The blue ribbon still sat on my coffee table, a constant reminder that my secret wasn't safe. My phone rang, an unknown number. Bridget? A familiar voice asked. It's Dallas Gray. My heart skipped. I hadn't heard from my high school ex since he'd joined the fire department 5 years ago. Dallas? How did you… Blair gave me your number. Listen, I'm working on updating our department's animal rescue protocols, and I heard about this new facility being built, the Second Chance Foundation. I shot Blair a look. She shrugged innocently. What about it? I asked carefully. We're interested in potentially collaborating. Your ventilation and emergency systems are exactly what we need for our wildlife rescue program. Any chance I could meet with the foundation director? I glanced at the latest threatening email. I'll have Jordan contact you. Actually, he paused. I was hoping to meet with the real director. The line went quiet. Blair mouthed, "Tell him," from across the room. How did you know? I finally asked. The blueprints had your grandmother's maiden name on the Shell Corporation. Catherine always said you'd do something amazing with animals. His voice softened. She'd be proud, you know. The mention of my grandmother hit hard. I remembered the last time I'd seen her, just weeks before she passed. They don't understand you, sweetheart, she'd said, holding my hand in her hospital room. But they don't need to. Understanding comes after courage, not before it. Bridget! Dallas's voice brought me back. Meet me for coffee? Tomorrow? Before I could answer, Blair's phone buzzed. Her face went pale. Owen just texted, she said. He's asking if I'm free to meet him at the dog show this weekend. Says he has interesting news about you. The dog show? My stomach dropped. My father's showcasing his new championship line there. Perfect place to expose you, Blair said grimly. I turned back to the phone. Dallas, can you meet me tonight instead? I need a favor. 3 hours later, I was sitting in my car outside the prestigious River Valley Dog Show, watching handlers parade their pristine pooches through the practice arena. Dallas sat beside me, looking uncomfortable in the suit I'd convinced him to wear. You sure about this? He asked. If Owen's going to expose me to my father, I need to know what he knows. I adjusted my blazer, part of the proper interview outfit Willow had insisted on buying me. Ready to play potential investor? We walked into the show like we belonged there, nodding at the right people, making appropriate small talk about bloodlines and breeding rights. I spotted Owen near the grooming stations, talking intently with my father. Stay here, I told Dallas, moving closer to eavesdrop. Can't prove anything yet, Owen was saying, but the property records show… A commotion at the grooming station interrupted him. One of my father's prized dogs had apparently snapped at the groomer. "What do you mean he's being difficult?" my father roared, storming over. "These dogs are bred for perfection. My legacy will not be upended by people like her." The groomer, a young woman close to tears, backed away. "Sir, I just meant—" "Get out!" my father snarled. "You're fired! I'll not have my reputation tarnished by incompetence." I watched the girl hurry away, remembering all the times I'd been on the receiving end of that same rage. But something else caught my attention. The way Owen had said, property records. Back in the car, Dallas let out a low whistle. "Your father's quite a piece of work." "Owen's been checking property records," I said, mind racing. "He must have traced the Shell Corporation somehow. So what's the play?" I pulled out my phone and dialed Jordan. "We need to move faster. How quickly can we get the emergency response systems operational?" 2 weeks minimum. Why? I looked at Dallas. "Because I have a feeling we're going to need them sooner rather than later. Can you help us fast-track the fire safety inspections?" He nodded slowly. "You think something's coming?" "My father never attacks unless he's sure of victory," I said, starting the car. "Which means we need to be ready before he is." As we pulled away from the show, I caught sight of Owen watching us from the entrance. He pulled out his phone, no doubt calling my father. The game was on, and this time I intended to win. "This is the 3rd day without rain," Jordan announced, staring at the parched landscape surrounding our nearly completed facility. "The fire department issued another warning this morning." I wiped sweat from my forehead as we walked through the building, checking the newly installed ventilation systems. The summer heat was brutal, and the drought had everyone on edge. "And Dallas says they're preparing for the worst fire season in decades," I said. "How are we looking with emergency preparations?" "Better than most," Jordan gestured to the industrial-grade air filtration units. "But your father's kennel—" "What about it?" "Blair's cousin let slip that they failed their last 2 fire safety inspections. Your father refused to upgrade the ventilation system, said it would compromise the controlled environment for his show dogs." My phone buzzed, Willow calling. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "I'm pregnant," she blurted before I could speak. The words hit like a punch to the gut. "Oh." "Father's throwing a celebration dinner tonight. You have to come. He's invited all the right people. Maybe you could wear that blue dress from—" "Still trying to set me up, even with your big news?" I forced a laugh. "Bridget, please. I need you there. Things have been so strange lately, with father acting suspicious and Owen asking questions about you." I caught Jordan's eye. She was pointing at the local news alert on her tablet. "Small fires reported near luxury estates. Authorities urge preparation." "I'll be there," I told Willow, "but I might be late." The dinner was exactly what I expected. Crystal glasses catching the light, perfect table settings, and enough passive-aggressive comments to fill a self-help book. "To my first grandchild," my father raised his glass. "Finally, a new generation to carry on our legacy of excellence." I pushed my food around my plate, thinking about the rescue center, about what real legacy meant. "Bridget," my father's voice cut through my thoughts. "Owen tells me you've been seen at the dog shows, having second thoughts about your alternative lifestyle." The way he said it made it sound like I was running a drug ring instead of saving animals. "Actually," I said, meeting his gaze, "I've been learning about emergency protocols for kennels. Did you know that outdated ventilation systems are the leading cause of death in fire situations?" His face darkened. "My facilities are state-of-the-art." "Really?" I pulled out my phone, showing him the fire department's latest report Blair had sent me. "Because according to this, your kennel's emergency systems haven't been updated since—" "Enough!" He slammed his hand on the table, making the silverware jump. "I will not be lectured about my business by someone who wastes her time with strays." Willow touched her stomach protectively. "Please, can we not fight?" Your sister's right, my father said, composing himself. This is a celebration, though it would be nice if both my daughters gave me something to celebrate. Before I could respond, all our phones buzzed simultaneously. An emergency alert. Mandatory evacuation warning for northern estates. Multiple fires approaching residential areas. My father waved it off. My property has the best private fire response team money can buy. And what about the dogs? I asked. What happens if the power fails and the ventilation stops? I said enough. He stood up, looming over the table. You think I haven't protected my investment? That I'd let some amateur lecture me about safety? My phone buzzed again. Dallas this time. Fire moving faster than predicted. Get to the facility now. I have to go, I said, standing up. Of course you do, my father sneered. Running off to your precious mutts again. I paused at the door, looking back at my family. Willow, cradling her future. My father, confident in his fortress of wealth and reputation. Neither of them had any idea what was coming. You know what, Dad? Sometimes the things we think protect us are the things that trap us instead. I drove straight to the rescue center, where Jordan and Blair were already mobilizing our emergency response teams. The horizon glowed an ominous orange. Your father's kennel is right in the path, Dallas said, joining us in the command center. If he doesn't evacuate soon... He won't, I said, watching the fire's progression on our monitors. He's too proud. Then those dogs are going to die, Blair said softly. I looked at our state-of-the-art facility, built with my grandmother's money and my father's scorn. Everything I'd done, every secret I'd kept, had led to this moment. No, I said, turning to my team. They're not, because we're going to save them, whether he likes it or not. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those years of him calling my work worthless, and now his precious legacy might depend on it. Karma really does bite back. The emergency alert system blared through our command center as Dallas burst through the door, still in his firefighting gear. The fire jumped the containment line. It's moving straight for the estates. I watched the security feed from my father's kennel complex. The smoke was already visible in the background, but the lights were still on, dogs still in their climate-controlled runs. Why isn't he evacuating? I demanded, grabbing my phone. All units are occupied with residential evacuations, Dallas said, pointing to the dispatch map. Your father's private response team got diverted to the Ford estate. Of course, Willow's in-laws would take priority. My phone rang, the kennel manager's number flashing on screen. I put it on speaker. The power's failing, she said, panic clear in her voice. The backup generators aren't responding. We have 48 show dogs in sealed units. I could hear barking in the background, growing more frantic by the second. Where's my father? I asked. He left for the emergency command post 20 minutes ago. Said he'd send help, but nobody's coming. The ventilation systems are shutting down. Jordan was already moving, activating our emergency protocols. Blair started prepping the isolation ward. Call the emergency line for Second Chance Foundation, I told the manager. We have specialized equipment for this exact situation. The new rescue center, but your father said, just do it. I hung up, turning to Dallas. How long do those dogs have once the ventilation fails? In this heat? Maybe 15 minutes before they start suffering heat stroke, less with the smoke. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was my father. The private response team is tied up, he said without preamble. I need you to call your shelter contacts, find someone with transport capabilities. You mean those worthless rescue organizations you're always mocking? Damn it, Bridget, this isn't the time. These dogs are worth millions. Try the Second Chance Foundation, I cut him off. I hear they have state-of-the-art emergency response equipment. A pause. The new place? They won't help me. I've been vocal about my opinions of rescue operations. Call them anyway, I said, watching our teams load up. You might be surprised. 5 minutes later, the call came through our emergency line. Jordan put it on speaker. This is Derek James. My father's voice was strained. I need, please, save my dogs. I'll do anything. I closed my eyes, years of dismissal and criticism washing over me. But there wasn't time for revenge, not with lives at stake. Teams 1 and 2, move out, I ordered. Full respiratory gear. Priority is the sealed units in the north wing. We rolled up to the kennel complex in our specialized vehicles, smoke thick in the air. The manager met us at the gate, coughing. The electrical systems completely failed, she reported. The seals are manual now. We can't get them open fast enough. Our teams deployed with practiced efficiency, using the hydraulic equipment we'd specifically designed for such emergencies. One by one, the dogs were brought out, given oxygen, loaded into our climate-controlled transport units. Through the smoke, I saw my father's car pull up. He jumped out, face covered with a handkerchief, and froze at the sight of our operation. How did you... he started, watching his precious show dogs being saved by the very kind of organization he'd spent years ridiculing. The last dog was loaded, just as the fire crested the hill behind the kennel. Dallas's team moved in with fire suppression equipment, but we all knew the building was lost. Get those transports moving, I shouted. Head for the foundation! Wait! My father grabbed the arm of one of our team members. Where are you taking them? To the only facility in the area equipped to handle this many animals in respiratory distress, Jordan said professionally. The Second Chance Foundation. He looked lost, watching his empire being loaded into rescue vehicles. I need to come with them. They're my dogs. Then I suggest you follow us, Jordan said, climbing into the lead vehicle. I stayed hidden in my protective gear, watching my father get into his car. He had no idea he was about to walk into a facility built with his own daughter's inheritance, saved by the very principles he'd spent years demeaning. Ready for this? Blair asked quietly beside me. I thought about all the times he'd told me I was wasting my life, all the dinners spent belittling my choices, all the years of trying to force me into his idea of success. No, I said, watching his car follow our convoy. But sometimes karma needs a little help. My father paced the lobby of Second Chance Foundation like a caged animal, while Jordan walked him through the intake paperwork. Through the observation window, I watched his show dogs receiving emergency care in our state-of-the-art treatment center. These facilities, he muttered, looking around. How does a rescue operation afford this? We have a generous, anonymous donor, Jordan replied smoothly. Someone who understands the value of every animal's life, regardless of pedigree. I stayed in the security room, watching through cameras, still in my protective gear. Blair worked the treatment floor, coordinating with our vet team. I need to see the dogs, my father demanded. First, we need to discuss their care requirements, Jordan said, sliding a document across the desk. And our conditions. Conditions? His face reddened. These are my dogs. Dogs you couldn't protect, Jordan countered. Dogs that would be dead if not for us. If you want them treated here, you'll sign our standard rescue agreement. He snatched the paper, scanning it. His face grew darker with each line. This is outrageous. You want me to agree to regular welfare inspections? To implement new safety protocols? To support rescue adoption events? Those are our terms. Do you know who I am? Yes, Jordan said calmly. You're the man whose dogs nearly died because he refused to update his ventilation systems. The man who called rescue organizations glorified dog catchers in last month's Breeders' magazine. Before he could respond, the emergency door burst open. Willow rushed in, still in her dinner dress. Dad, are you okay? I saw the fire on the news and... She stopped, staring at our facility. This is... incredible. Your father was just about to sign our care agreement, Jordan said. "I'll do no such thing. I'll move them to another facility. In this emergency, every kennel within 50 miles is either evacuated or full." Jordan's voice was steel. "Sign, or find somewhere else for 48 smoke inhalation cases. Now." His hand shook as he grabbed the pen. Pride warred with desperation on his face. I couldn't take it anymore. Pulling off my protective gear, I stepped out of the security room. "Bridget!" Willow gasped. "What are you—" Understanding dawned on my father's face. The pen clattered to the desk. "You," he whispered. "This is yours." "Surprise," I said, walking over to the observation window. All those years of wasting time with strays taught me exactly what a real emergency response center needs. "The anonymous donor," Willow said. "Grandmother's inheritance. You used my mother-in-law's money to build this state-of-the-art animal rescue facility. I finished for him. With better safety protocols than your precious breeding operation? Yes, I did." He took a step toward me, but Dallas appeared in the doorway, still in his firefighting gear. "Everything okay in here?" My father looked from Dallas to me, to the papers on the desk. "You planned this." "No," I said quietly. "I planned to build something meaningful, something that would save lives. The fact that it saved your dogs? That's just karma." "Sign the papers, Dad," Willow said suddenly. We all turned to look at her. "Sign them, or I'll tell every society magazine exactly why your prize-winning dogs ended up in a rescue center." My father stared at his perfect daughter, the one who'd always played by his rules, now standing with me. "You'd side with her?" "I'm pregnant," Willow said, touching her stomach. "And I don't want my child growing up thinking money and status matter more than doing what's right." The silence stretched. Finally, my father picked up the pen. "You'll regret this," he said as he signed. "Both of you." "No," I said, watching through the window as Blair administered oxygen to one of his prized champions. "I think we'll sleep just fine." He stormed out, leaving Willow and me alone with Jordan. "A reporter from the local news is outside," Jordan said. "They're running a story on the emergency rescue operation." "Should I—" "Tell them the truth," I said. "All of it." "Bridget," Willow touched my arm. "Are you sure? Once this gets out—" "I'm sure," I said, watching another of my father's dogs respond to treatment. "It's time everyone knew that pedigree doesn't determine worth, in dogs or in daughters." Through the window, I saw Blair give me a thumbs up. The dogs would survive, though my relationship with my father probably wouldn't. But standing there, watching lives being saved in a facility built from my grandmother's faith in me, I realized some things were worth losing to find yourself. The story broke the next morning. Elite show dogs saved by heiress's secret rescue center. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. "Your father's being interviewed on Channel 5, Blair said, bursting into my office at the center. "He's trying to spin it." I flipped on the TV just in time to see my father, perfectly composed in his designer suit, speaking to reporters outside his partially burned kennel. "Of course I knew about my daughter's project," he lied smoothly. "We've been collaborating behind the scenes. The James family has always supported animal welfare." "Collaborating?" Blair snorted. "Is that what we're calling threatening emails now?" My phone rang. "Willow." "Have you seen the interview? He's completely rewriting history." "Not for long," I said, checking my watch. "The Animal Welfare Gala starts in 2 hours. And guess who's giving the keynote speech?" The annual gala was the biggest event in our city's animal welfare community. My father had finagled his way into speaking, no doubt planning to cement his new public image as a champion of animal rescue. "You're going?" Willow asked. "Oh, I'm doing more than that." The ballroom was packed when I arrived. Social media had turned our rescue operation into an overnight sensation. and everyone wanted a glimpse of the heiress who'd defied her father to save animals. My father stood at the podium, soaking in the attention. When my daughter came to me with her vision for Second Chance Foundation, I knew immediately. That's not quite how I remember it, I said loudly, walking down the center aisle. The room went silent. In fact, I remember you calling rescue workers glorified dog catchers just last month. He gripped the podium. Bridget, this isn't the time. Actually, it's exactly the time. I reached the stage, turning to face the crowd. My father didn't support this rescue center. He tried to stop it. Those threatening emails? They came from his assistant. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Phones came out, recording. The only reason his dogs ended up in my facility is because he refused to upgrade his own safety systems. Because profit meant more than protection. That's enough, he snapped, but I wasn't finished. You want to know the truth? My grandmother left me an inheritance because she knew my father would never support my dreams. She knew he cared more about breeding perfect show dogs than raising daughters who could think for themselves. You ungrateful. You loved your dogs, I cut him off. But you never loved me unless I sat and stayed. Well, I'm not sitting anymore. The room erupted in applause. I saw Blair near the back, live streaming everything. Willow stood beside her, one hand on her stomach, nodding. My father grabbed my arm. You're making a scene. No, I pulled away. I'm making a point. Your dogs are safe and healthy at my facility. But they're not leaving until you publicly acknowledge the truth. All of it. He looked around the room, at all the phones recording his every move, at his carefully crafted reputation crumbling in real time. You wouldn't dare keep them. Try me. I turned back to the microphone. Would anyone like to hear about the failed safety inspections? Or maybe about how he threatened to disown me for working at a shelter? Stop. His voice cracked. Please. The mighty Derek James, begging in public. But I felt no triumph, only sadness. You know what the difference is between us, Dad? I built something to save lives. You built something to win ribbons. And when it mattered most, which one actually worked? He walked off the stage, shoulders slumped, leaving me alone at the podium. The audience was dead silent. Second Chance Foundation isn't just a name, I said into the microphone. It's a promise. To every animal who needs help. To every person who's been told their compassion is weakness. And yes, even to people who have to learn the hard way that pedigree isn't the same as worth. The applause was deafening. Later, Blair showed me the video going viral, my words reaching far beyond that ballroom. Your father's leaving, Willow told me at the reception. He's taking a leave of absence from the breeding association. And the dogs? He signed them over to your foundation. All of them. She smiled sadly. I think you finally broke him. I watched the sunset through the ballroom windows, thinking about karma and consequences, about fathers and daughters, about what it means to truly win. No, I said finally. He broke himself. I just built something strong enough to catch the pieces. The autumn breeze rustled through the memorial garden as I placed fresh flowers on my grandmother's grave. Behind me, the sounds of happy barking drifted from Second Chance Foundation's new puppy playground. I did it, Grandma, I whispered, touching the cool stone. I lit up the sky, just like you said. Bridget, Blair called from the path. The adoption event's starting, and you won't believe who just showed up. I found Willow in the main reception area, her baby bump now visible under her designer dress. But she wasn't alone. Look what I found in the parking lot, she said, gesturing to our father sitting awkwardly in one of the waiting room chairs. He'd lost weight since the gala, and his usual perfect posture was gone. The Florida house fell through, he said before I could speak. And the breeding association, Well, nobody wants to work with me now. That's not why you're here, Willow said quietly. Tell her the truth. He stood up, pulling something from his jacket, a worn blue ribbon, identical to the one that had once threatened to expose me. I left this, he admitted, back when Owen first told me about the construction. I was so angry, so sure you were making a mistake. He placed the ribbon on the counter. I was the one who made the mistake. Dad, let me finish. He looked around the facility, at the happy families meeting potential pets, at the state-of-the-art medical wing where his own dogs had been saved. You built something remarkable here. Something real. While I was busy breeding dogs for ribbons, you were saving lives. Through the window, I could see Dallas leading a fire safety demonstration with some of our rescued dogs. The same dogs that had once been my father's prized possessions. Your grandmother knew, he continued. She knew you had it in you to do something extraordinary. I was too blind to see it. Until the fire, I said. Until I watched a rescue organization save everything I thought was important. He smiled sadly, only to realize I'd spent years dismissing what was actually important. Willow squeezed my hand as Blair approached with a squirming puppy in her arms. This little guy just got cleared for adoption, she said. Found him in the aftermath of the fire. No chip, no collar. My father reached out hesitantly, letting the puppy sniff his hand. He's not exactly show quality. No, I agreed. He's better. He's a survivor. The puppy licked his fingers, and something in my father's face softened. What's his name? He asked. He doesn't have one yet. I watched as the puppy crawled into his lap. Want to do the honors? Me? He looked startled. But I don't know anything about regular dogs, only show breeds. Then maybe it's time to learn. I handed him an adoption form. Everyone deserves a second chance, even stubborn old show dog breeders. He stared at the paper for a long moment. I don't deserve your forgiveness. This isn't about forgiveness, I said. It's about moving forward, building something new. The puppy had fallen asleep in his lap, drooling slightly on his expensive pants. He didn't seem to notice. Phoenix, he said suddenly. His name should be Phoenix. Rising from the ashes, Willow smiled. Fitting. Speaking of rising, Blair interrupted. The local news is here for the follow-up story. They want to interview both of you. My father looked at me uncertainly. What should I say? The truth, I suggested. About how sometimes it takes losing everything to find what matters. He nodded, carefully shifting Phoenix to one arm as he signed the adoption papers with his free hand. You know, he said, your grandmother told me something once, right before she changed her will. She said, Derek, that girl's going to build something beautiful from all your disappointment. I didn't understand then. And now? He looked around at the facility, at Willow's pregnant belly, at the sleeping rescue puppy in his arms. Now I understand she wasn't talking about the building. She was talking about you. Outside, more families arrived for the adoption event. I watched through the window as Dallas helped a little girl meet her potential new best friend, as Blair showed an elderly couple the senior dog wing, as Jordan explained our emergency response protocols to a news crew. Funny how karma works, I said, scratching Phoenix behind the ears. It fetches better than any purebred ever could. My father actually laughed. Your grandmother would have loved that line. She did, I smiled. She's the one who taught it to me. Together, we walked out to meet the press, a reformed show dog breeder and his rescue-loving daughter, with a mutt puppy named Phoenix sleeping between them. Sometimes the best pedigrees aren't the ones you're born with. They're the ones you build yourself.